President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was inaugurated as the 16th President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on the 29th of May 2023. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a president with a private sector background, having worked in the banking and oil sector in the past. As the President of Nigeria, he promised to review the revenue sharing formula among the three tiers of government. Now, the President will allocate more funds to the states and local government to address local concerns and fulfill their expanded constitutional obligations to the people. He stated that the existing arrangement had been problematic because state governments are closer to the people and must be more responsive to local needs and aspirations of the people. On his fiscal policy, Tinubu has promised to review the federal budgetary methodology, embark on a national infrastructure campaign, and drive an import substitution agenda, reform the taxation system whereby the rich will pay more for what they consume, and fight corruption, inefficiency, and wasting government. Joining me now to speak on President Tinubu's policy and Nigeria's reinvention is a lawyer and policy expert, Chinenye Uwanaka. I want to say good afternoon and welcome to Arise News Now.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Chinenye, looking at it, the president has listed quite a lot, and as they always say, talk is cheap usually. But talk to us, what are the indicators that most of all these promises will be a reality at the end of the day?
So honestly, as a young person in this country, over the years, we've been made promises by past administrations, a lot of policy promises, and at the end of the day, some of them or most of them are not realized. And now the president has hit the ground running. He has removed subsidy. He's promising a lot of things, and we're looking up to him to deliver on his campaign promises. Nigeria is a country that has been faced with a lot of policy somersaults and a lot of duplicity, whereby it seems like, one arm of government is saying one thing, and another arm is doing another thing. So as citizens, we're here to hold the government accountable, to demand good governance, because at the end of the day, we're all feeling the pinch. So we're optimistic, that the president will deliver on his promises, and we're here also to hold him accountable.
All right, you said optimism is probably the driving word at the moment, understanding that a lot of people in Nigeria will say that what government says has been gains and major milestones in the administration is quite different from what people themselves get to call gains and milestones. Using the former administration as a case study, they spoke about the dividends of democracy, they spoke about the major pillars of the administration, and they said in their own words they had actually laid the foundation for a prosperous Nigeria. But that seems not to be the case. How can we get on the same page is a big question. That what the people get to see and what the government gets to say seems to be in tandem.
Yes, I think that we need an overhaul of the system. Honestly, because the civil service, the policymakers have not been very efficient in delivering on their promises. First and foremost, we need to appoint the right cabinet. We can no longer wait. The past administration waited almost 6 months, and that created a lot of uncertainty, and even affected the markets. Investors are watching, the private sector is watching, day-to-day citizens are watching, and they need to hit the ground running. We're expecting that in the next few weeks, we should have announced a cabinet. We need to ensure that the best and the brightest of us are the ones that are governing us. Because, most times, politics trumps policies. So, when you have the people there and the politicians are also interfering in their work, and it's all about personal interest and it's all about self-aggrandizement, then the citizens will not feel the dividends of the democracy. So at the end of the day, we have to ensure that whatever we do is evidence-based, is user-centric. The government has to come closer to the people, understand their pain points. I always say Nigeria doesn't need so much. We have everything it takes. We have the human capital. We have a youth population. Look at all the unicorns in Africa. Majority of them are from Nigeria. We have the tech ecosystem. We have entrepreneurship. We have so much. So at the end of the day, we have to ensure that the government looks at these industries that we have a comparative advantage and ensures that we drive investment if we don't do that, if we don't remove the bottlenecks, then it's just going to be business as usual. Because at the end of the day, like I said, a lot of our policymakers, civil servants are very disillusioned. And when you go to them with good ideas, and even when investors come in, because I'm a lawyer, I run a law and consulting firm, so I work with the biggest companies in the world, and I know how much interest there is in Nigeria. But most times they'll tell you, look, the policy environment is not favorable, it's not business friendly. So there are so many low-hanging fruits that this administration can use to actually help the people to feel the dividends of their democracy. Ensure that we don't have this policy somersaults where one day you wake up, they've banned one thing, tomorrow you wake up, they've removed subsidy without warning, next tomorrow you wake up. There's so much uncertainty. Everything you do, I'm for the removal of fuel subsidy, but ensure that you cushion the effects. You ensure that the end users, because it's human beings, it's Nigerians, it's human beings that are feeling the brunt of this. 130 million people are living in abject poverty in Nigeria. So we need a different government. We need a different way of doing things. We need leaders with empathy, and that's the only way we can feel the dividends of democracy in this country.
All right, you spoke about low-hanging fruits, and a lot of people will say that probably the president is trying to take too much on his plate because you can't fix Nigeria certainly in 4 years. It's a continuum. But looking at it closely, what are those cardinals you think that if engaged upon and if efforts and resources are actually pushed into it will make a whole world of difference today in Nigeria?
So I believe that, first of all, you must focus on our population, especially our youth population. When the president is appointing the cabinet, they must ensure that we have a representative government, an inclusive government. I mean, this election was very, it divided a lot of us. A lot of people even lost hope because of all the ethnic and religious issues. So when you're, bringing in a cabinet, you need to ensure that it's very inclusive. It has the best and the brightest. It has technocrats, thought leaders, experts. And then when they come together, we must focus on the areas where, like you said, the low-hanging fruits. For instance, in Nigeria, we all know that there are things that we're naturally good at. We all know that there are resources that we have in abundance. But the issue has been that, for instance, with our mineral resources, we have very little value addition. For instance, with crude oil, we're still importing petroleum. Even our manufactured goods, most of the things, we're an import-dependent country. And that's why we always complain about FX issues and all that. So any government coming in, number one policy should be patronize and advocate for made in Nigeria policy. Made in Nigeria. Let us wear Nigerian, buy Nigerian, eat Nigerian to grow the Naira. That's number one. Number two, you must focus on job creation. Job for the youth and job for all the citizens, because when you have youth that are unemployed, it leads to insecurity. It leads to kidnapping. It leads to Yahoo and all these things that we talk about. So you must ensure that you focus on the human capital, because a lot of people complain now that our graduates are not even employable. So you must ensure that you're creating jobs and you're also preparing the younger generation for these jobs of today, because we all know we live in the fourth industrial revolution. The world is changing to a knowledge-based economy. We're moving away from fossil fuels. Now we're focusing on innovation. So young Nigerians have the natural talents. If this government can focus on policies that will grow the economy and create jobs, like I said, innovative jobs, entrepreneurship, and then to do that, access to capital. Past governments have promised, funding. We have all this SME funding. We have, so many funding here and there. But then when you go and you check it, we don't have people actually being able to access those funding. When you go to banks as a young person, I'm a young business owner. I own a law firm. I pay salaries, and I know how difficult it is for even myself for me to go and access capital in this country. It's almost like the capital is set aside for certain people. But guess what? You need capital to start up businesses. You need capital for innovation. So the government must focus on mobilizing domestic capital, ensuring that the barriers are lowered for citizens to be able to access capital. That's the second thing. Thirdly, we must ensure that we make Nigeria very investment friendly. Like I said, people from all over the world want to come into Nigeria, but there are certain bottlenecks. When you come from multiple taxation to all the barriers to trade, not being able to access FX or even repatriate their funds. Look at the airlines that have left Nigeria. They complain that They can't, the policy is not friendly. The environment is not friendly for them. So there are some little quick wins that the government can do that can just get this country going. And most importantly, like I said, the mindset has to change because it starts from the mindset. If our leaders are there for the people, for the good of the people, it's going to reflect on the economy. But if they are there for the usual, turn by turn, national cake and all that, then it's just going to be business as usual.
All right. Speaking about business as usual, of course, the president decided that it will be business as usual, especially in the oil sector, and hence the removal of fuel subsidy. But the people are the ones that have been left to actually bear the brunt of the removal of fuel subsidy, because at the moment, cost of living in Nigeria has actually gone sky high and people are feeling it. And although the government has promised, but do you think they have done enough to help cushion the effect of this fuel subsidy? Because this is not something that you probably, as some would say, make a futile effort of just giving palliative of 30,000 to some displaced Nigerians. Has the government done enough? And what can the government do to ensure that people get a soft landing? People at least can breathe. Talk to us about this.
So definitely enough hasn't been done, First and foremost, like I said, you need to cushion the effects. Before you enforce a policy or implement a policy, you need to prepare people. Even businesses need time for their financial, analysis and forecast. Homes need time to save up. You need to be able to have alternatives. For instance, people, buses, trains, other things that you can use to cushion the effect, or some sort of subsidy system to transporters, mass transport, or, there's so many initiatives that the government could have introduced first before removing the subsidy. However, we're where we are now. But guess what? Nigerians are saying that it doesn't end at removing subsidy. One, people must be brought to book. There needs to be adequate investigation to ensure that the people who abuse the system are brought to book. Secondly, we need to tighten the leakages, because it's not just about removing subsidy. Yes, okay, if you save the money, what's the guarantee that that money is not going to be stolen or squandered? So we must ensure that we have a proper system, leverage technology. I talked about the fourth industrial revolution. There are so many technologies that you can use to track how much fuel is imported, how much fuel is utilized, and even the whole government system, e-governance, ensuring that you can track decisions that are being made from one point to the other. This is the only way that we can ensure that the cost savings from the subsidy removal can actually directly affect the citizens. Now, the money, like we said, that has been saved has to be used to invest in critical infrastructure. We're lacking in so many ways. Apart from Abuja, Lagos, and a few cities, a lot of the cities in Nigeria are so backward. We don't have basic amenities. We're still talking about power in Nigeria. That's one of the things that, if you remove subsidy, now that it's removed, people are relying on generators and all this stuff. So we must ensure that we fix the power sector. I commend the government, the past government, President Buhari or former President Buhari, for signing that constitutional amendment, and even President Tinubu for also assenting to the bill, the electricity bill, which has given rise to the decentralization of power, which means that state governments too have to get serious. It's not business as usual, and we must ensure that all these resources are channeled to power, roads, critical infrastructure, digital infrastructure, because like I talked about, living in this knowledge age, the age of technology, people need access to broadband, access to internet services, connectivity. These are the things that boost trade. We all know that trade has even moved online. You have e-commerce and all these things right now. So we must have a national vision. We must have a plan. And all the layers of government, from the federal government to the state government, must all work together, even the National Assembly and the judiciary. Because guess what? The judiciary also has a very important role to play in ensuring that public servants who don't do the right thing are also brought to book.
All right, since you mentioned the judiciary, let's actually pick up on that. Of course, a lot of people have actually criticized the president for extending the retirement age of the High Court judges, and they say it has actually even opened a can of worms, because certainly those at the upper courts will also be asking for theirs, because talking about the Supreme Court and also the Court of Appeal. As a lawyer, some say that this is almost stifling the younger generation of benchers to actually rise with the extension of this particular age limit.
To be honest, yes, as a young lawyer, it is quite discouraging. Although, you know, sometimes when you extend the age, you're able to leverage on the experience of these justices. However, there's room for more. If you look at the ratio of citizens we have, over 200 million people, we need more courts. In fact, the entire justice system needs an overhaul. I'm a lawyer. I know the frustration I face when my clients have to take cases to court. Sometimes we end up discouraging them because people spend years. Sometimes we've had people that have even died before they got justice. So at the end of the day, we need to invest in the judiciary. You know, we need the judiciary to be autonomous. We need to ensure that they get adequate funding, you know, their adequate salaries, because at the end of the day, there's also a lot of work. And then our court system has to be digitized as well. Other parts of the world, when you go, you know, you have, you know, hearing online, you have automated systems. So the judiciary is so critical. And then secondly, even for the business environment, we know about enforcement of contracts. Most times for someone to invest in a country, you need to ensure that the court systems can actually give you justice. Apart from the business environment, we have the average citizens. We say the judiciary is the last hope for the common man. So we must ensure that we don't have, you know, politicians or people in the executive over manipulating the judiciary, that there's clear separation of powers. The judiciary is allowed to act independently. And even though they want to increase the age, so be it, but then give opportunities for younger lawyers to get involved. We live in a country sometimes, you know, we feel that they don't take young people seriously in this country. But we're missing out on a demographic that actually has relevant skill sets to support the Nigeria of today. So we must ensure that the judiciary is adequately taken care of in terms of budgetary allocation, but they're also left to be independent to do the serious work that they have to do for the nation.
All right, I want to say many thanks to you for your time here on Newsday and for your perspective on the state of the nation.